All right, my talk is titled HCI Implications for Scuba Diving, and I'm a recent graduate from the Mechanical Engineering Department and HCI Department. And today I'll talk a little bit about scuba diving and dive computers and why it's worthy of an HCI person to look at them. I'm currently an assistant instructor, and I have just about 200 dives under my belt, and I'm particularly interested in wreck diving. That's kind of my passion. And so what is scuba diving? Scuba diving is a self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, and you can explore the water. And it's a sport. It's a recreational activity that is, everybody can participate in that. The interesting thing about scuba diving is that we can actually explore the earth, or rather the water, up to 200 feet. But the really interesting thing is that there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been explored. Submarines can go a lot deeper, but with this recreational scuba equipment, we're really limited to the first 100 to 200 feet. So we have, your typical setup with weights, snorkel mask, stuff that you see from Jacques Cousteau movies. So unlike submarines, you have the pressure of the water column is actually acting on your body, which, as you go deeper, more pressure is acting on your body, which brings certain safety considerations for scuba diving, and this is why you should always get training for scuba diving. It can be very dangerous, actually, and if you do not obey certain limits, it can be deadly. So this is sort of the old school setup. There's really no way of knowing how deep you go and how much air you have left over. It's just very basic. You have 2 tanks strapped to your back, and that's it. The US Navy actually came up with these dive tables, and it pretty much tells you how long you can stay at a certain depth for a certain amount of time. While this is great, you don't always carry this sort of dive table with you. So people have come up with these dive computers, and they're great, but there's certain problems with them. You sometimes have to flip through different screens, and really they track the depth, how much time you're spending, how much time you have remaining, and you also have to look at them for compass positions, and they'll also tell you how much time you have left for your no decompression. In scuba diving, especially if you get more into the technical areas, you have a lot of task loading going on. So not only do you have to keep track of your time remaining, you also have to worry about different tanks and different air supplies or gas supplies. So it's really important that the task loading is somewhat mitigated. We have different dive environments. It's not always just diving in the Bahamas, but there's a lot of stuff to see, under the ice. There's lots of ice diving in Wisconsin that's really interesting. Cave diving is another environment that is particularly dangerous, but you can see there's no natural sunlight, so you get into a whole other area of problems with self-illumination and just figuring out where you are at. Wreck diving is also, it's pretty cool. You do have a little bit more of natural sunlight, but if you can think of swimming through an old ship, the problem really comes in, if you end up swimming into something rusty. So underwater, the light actually gets reduced. It's called light absorption, so you have less light to work with. So a lot of the self-illumination or any color codes that you would use are potentially risky. So here's just a couple of different examples of dive computers, and you can see they're set up fairly different. So I think it would be a great way to look at some of the HCI challenges and make better computers. The future, I don't know if this is really the future, but this is a new data mass that's available on the market for a lot of money. But you only have this little display that shows you the depth and the air supply. So, and I think my 5 minutes are up. So if you want to get certified, there's a lot of different agencies out there that will help you get certified. It is an activity that everybody can participate in. If you're more interested into the twilight zone, which is really the unexplored zone in the water column, there's a really cool TED Talk. If you search for TED Talk Twilight Zone, it's a really cool talk about this particular area in the water column. Thank you.